friends. My name is Jennifer All, and today's Daily Hope reading comes from Psalm 57. Now, this is a psalm that we know from the heading it was written by David at a key point in his story that can be found in 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 1 through 2. From this context, we know that David wrote this psalm while he was on the run from King Saul, who was after him, wanted him dead, and David has fled to these caves outside of town in the wilderness. And while he's in these caves, his brothers and his father's household heard about him, and they went down to stay with him there at the caves, to join him. And all those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their leader. About 400 men were with him. I picture it's almost like Robin Hood and his merry men. David is an outlaw, and all these men are catching word of him out there in the wilderness in these caves, and they're coming to join him. And I find it so notable of what these men had in common and the characteristics that are used to describe them, because these are not merry men who are joking and laughing like the movies portray Robin Hood and his group. These are people who are in distress, who are in need, who are discontent. They are having a rough go of it, and they're struggling through life. I think these are people who they're looking for something different than what life has offered them so far. They are in need of help, and maybe some of them are looking for a second chance. They're looking for hope, and so they come and gather around David. Now, when you've got a whole bunch of people together who are disenfranchised, disillusioned, upset with what life is offering them, and feeling like life is unfair, usually the conversation tends to lend itself to a bunch of grumbling and bitter talk. But David, in Psalm 57, he coaches his own heart as well as these men that are gathering around him, and through them, us. He coaches us all to not give in to that bitter talk that pulls you away from God, makes you feel distant and alone. But instead, he says in Psalm 57, he says, "Have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me, for in you my soul takes refuge. I will take refuge in the shadow of your wings." He says he cries out to God, who fulfills his purpose for me, who sends from heaven and saves me. Instead of leaning into the bitter talk, he says, lean into your good God, who is so faithful to you, and in him find your refuge. It's like the cave has become a symbol of God's arms of protection and safety around David and his men. As they are for us today, we can find refuge in our good God, who is going to fulfill his purposes for us. The calling on your life and mine God is still working on that, even in spite of our circumstances around us. God is still for us, not against us. And David closes the psalm by telling us, he says, "My heart is steadfast. Oh God, my heart is steadfast. I will sing and make music. Awake, my soul, awake, harp and lyre. I will awake in the dawn." I love this part because it's as if David is giving himself a pep talk, and his men and us. He's saying, steady my heart on who God is. My heart is steadfast. Anchor my heart on who he is, how he is true to us, that he is trustworthy and faithful. And then one of the best ways to anchor our hearts to him, to steady our hearts on the Lord, is to praise. And I love that David, it seems like David doesn't even want to himself. He's like, okay, come on, soul, awaken, awaken. And he goes, I will sing. Sometimes the talk out of our mouth wants to be negative, and he says, no, choose to make the talk praise to God, because he is good. And as we praise God and repeat his promises and his character, it steadies our soul. It builds us up and strengthens us to the point where we want to proclaim it and awaken everyone else around us. So my encouragement to all of us today, no matter what you are going through, lean into our good God and let your heart become steady and stable as you stand on his promises and sing of his praises. It'll turn us from a group of moody misfits to mighty witnesses to God's glory. So steady your hearts and be encouraged.